Karen always believed she could go anywhere, drive anywhere, and do anything she pleased. Rules didn't apply to her. Boundaries were, for other people. And on one quiet Saturday morning, she decided that our private hunting trail was just another place she could conquer with her shiny white Jeep Wrangler. The morning had started perfectly peaceful. Grandpa and I were sitting outside our cabin, cleaning rifles, checking trail cameras, and drinking fresh, smoky campfire coffee. The woods were calm, the birds were chirping, and everything felt as it always did, quiet, predictable, and ours. Our family had protected this land for 4 generations. The hunting trail ran deep into the forest, carefully maintained so deer could pass through and seasons could be tracked. Grandpa treated those trails like sacred ground. Not even we were allowed to take ATVs onto them unless absolutely necessary. But then we heard it. A loud rumbling, an engine growling, tires crunching over fallen branches. Grandpa lifted his head slowly. "That better not be what I think it is," he muttered. Moments later, a white Jeep came bursting through the tree line, spitting mud everywhere. And behind the wheel was a woman with oversized sunglasses, a furious expression, and absolutely no awareness that she was somewhere she did not belong. Grandpa's jaw clenched. I swear I saw a vein pop in his forehead. Karen stopped her Jeep right in the middle of the trail, leaned out the window, and yelled, "Hi. Is this the shortcut to the waterfall? My GPS sent me this way." Grandpa stood up, wiping his hands on his flannel shirt. "Ma'am," he said, keeping calm, "this is private hunting land. You can't drive a Jeep through here." "Well," Karen snapped, "I already did. And I'm not turning back. So either show me the way out or stop wasting my time." Grandpa stared at her tire tracks, long, deep, destroying the carefully shaped trail bed. 40 years of work ruined in 10 seconds. He took a slow breath. "I'll show you the way." Karen smirked and revved her engine like she had just won. But she didn't know Grandpa. He wasn't the type to raise his voice. He didn't argue. He didn't fight. Grandpa taught lessons. The plan. Karen followed Grandpa's hand signals as he pointed her toward the narrow exit path that looped around the woods. She assumed he was helping her leave. She didn't see the glint in his eyes. She didn't know that the exit road had just been resurfaced yesterday, and Grandpa knew every inch of it. As soon as she drove off, Grandpa turned to me. "Go grab the spike strips." I blinked. "The what?" He pointed at the shed. "The spikes. The ones I used back when poachers kept sneaking in." "Grandpa, you can't." "Oh yes I can." He marched to the shed, grabbed a heavy bundle of steel tire spikes, and tossed them into the back of his truck. With slow, precise movements, like he'd done this 100 times, he drove toward the exit road. We arrived just minutes before Karen reached the final bend. Grandpa laid the spikes perfectly across the dirt road, covered them with a thin layer of dry leaves, then stepped back with a satisfied nod. "She wants to off-road. I'll give her off-road." I tried not to laugh, but Grandpa's level of seriousness made it impossible. He meant business. The moment of truth. Karen's Jeep appeared around the corner, bouncing aggressively as she drove way too fast over the rugged terrain. She spotted us standing at the side of the exit road. Instead of slowing down, she sped up. "This lady has no sense," Grandpa muttered. The Jeep rolled right over the spikes. Bang, pop, whoosh. 3 tires exploded instantly, 2 in the front, 1 in the back. The Jeep skidded sideways, fishtail-ed, and screeched to a halt in a cloud of dust. Karen swung the door open, furious, sunglasses crooked. "What did you do?" "My Jeep. My new Jeep." Grandpa crossed his arms calmly. "Ma'am, this is private property. Exit road is spiked for unwanted vehicles. Said so on the sign you ignored." "There was no sign." "There were 3, Grandpa said. You drove past all of them." Karen stomped her foot like a tantrum-throwing toddler. "You're paying for this." Grandpa chuckled. "Not a chance. You trespassed. You destroyed my trail. Be glad I didn't call the sheriff." Karen's face went red, so red she looked like she was about to melt. "Give me a phone. I'm calling someone." Grandpa pulled his own flip phone from his pocket and waved it. "Already did. Tow truck's on its way. They'll drag you out, for a trespass fee. Including tire replacement," I added helpfully. Karen screamed into the trees. The tow truck arrival. When the tow truck finally arrived, the driver already knew who she was. Apparently, Karen had a history, a big one. "Oh boy," he said, shaking his head. "We've pulled her out of 3 ditches this month." Karen folded her arms. "Just get me out of here." The driver loaded the Jeep onto the truck bed, 4 tires shredded to ribbons. Leaves and dirt stuck to the rims where the spikes had sliced through. How much? Karen demanded. The driver said. Trespass fee. Off-road recovery. Emergency call. Damaged property. Plus 4 new tires, let's say around $2,000. Karen nearly fainted. Grandpa didn't smile. He didn't gloat. He just said quietly, next time, respect other people's land. The driver drove away with the Jeep, and Karen glared at us from the passenger seat, humiliated and silent. The aftermath. An hour later, Grandpa and I walked the length of the hunting trail. Her Jeep had torn deep ruts, crushed saplings, and messed up fresh deer tracks. It would take days to repair. Grandpa sighed. We'll fix it, but she won't come back. He bent down, checked the dirt, and nodded. Nature would heal. The trail would recover. And Karen, she learned a lesson the hard way. Grandpa didn't yell. He didn't threaten. He didn't chase her off. He simply made sure the way out of our land wasn't as easy as the way in. Grandpa always said, the forest remembers respect, and it remembers disrespect even longer. We'd lived on that land for so long that the woods felt like family. Every trail, every creek, every animal path had a history. And nothing angered Grandpa more than outsiders treating it like a playground. That's exactly what happened the day Karen showed up in her shiny, loud, mud-splattering Jeep, completely ignoring every private land sign we had posted. The day it happened, it was early afternoon, and Grandpa and I were restocking the feed stations and checking trail cameras. The forest was calm. Deer grazed silently near the tree line. Birds fluttered across sunbeams. Everything felt peaceful. Then came the sound. A deep, rude growling engine. Revs. Tires skidding over roots. Branches snapping. Grandpa froze mid-step. Someone better not be driving on my trail. He didn't finish the sentence. A bright white Jeep suddenly shot around a corner, sliding sideways like it was in a stunt movie. Mud flew everywhere, coating the ferns and logs we had carefully maintained. I could see the panic on the deer as they sprinted deeper into the woods. And behind the wheel was a woman with oversized sunglasses, a messy bun, and entitlement practically glowing off her. Grandpa clenched his jaw. City type, he said under his breath. She stopped the Jeep right in front of us and rolled down her window. Is this the road to the lookout point? She asked, annoyed. My GPS says it's this way. Grandpa pointed at the first sign she had run over, broken and lying beside her tire. Lady, he said firmly, this is private. You weren't supposed to come in here. She scoffed. Well, I'm already here, so tell me how to get out. I'm not driving back the way I came. Too many bumps. Grandpa's eye twitched. She had crushed the signs. Driven over our hunting trail. Scared away the wildlife. And now she was calling the trail she destroyed, too bumpy. But Grandpa stayed calm, in that dangerous quiet way he had. You want out, he said finally. All right, follow me. I'll show you an exit. Karen rolled her eyes, put her Jeep in gear, and followed us slowly. But Grandpa already had a plan forming. And I could tell by the way he smiled, barely, that she wasn't going to enjoy the exit road at all. Grandpa's idea. Go ahead and lead her to the ridge, Grandpa whispered to me. Make sure she doesn't wander anywhere else. I nodded and guided her Jeep down the narrow path while Grandpa disappeared toward the shed. 10 minutes later, when the trail opened into the clearing, I could see Grandpa again, this time with a shovel, a bag of metal tire spikes, and the biggest grin he'd had in years. He kneeled down at the mouth of the exit road, the very last stretch Karen would have to cross. He planted the spikes deeply into the dirt, arranged them perfectly to catch tires, and covered everything with a thin layer of soft fallen pine needles. By the time Karen rolled up in her Jeep, Grandpa looked like he'd just finished planting garden flowers. She revved her engine impatiently. Can you hurry up? I have places to be. Grandpa wiped his hands on his jeans. Oh, I bet you do. One last warning. Before she drove forward, Grandpa tried, one final time, to be reasonable. There are 3 signs you ignored. This land is private. The trails are protected. You shouldn't be here. She waved her hand dismissively. Oh please. These woods are huge. Nobody cares. Now move. Grandpa nodded once. Suit yourself. Karen hit the gas. The moment everything changed, she accelerated straight onto the spiked section. Pop, 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 pop. All 4 tires exploded so loudly that even the birds went silent. Her Jeep lurched forward, nose dived into the dirt, skid marks carving deep into the earth. Dust and pine needles flew everywhere. The Jeep came to a violent stop, tilted slightly to one side. And the scream that came next echoed through the entire forest. "What did you do?" she shrieked. Grandpa calmly walked toward the Jeep, hands in his pockets. "You parked on my exit road," he said. "It's protected from trespassers. Posted right there." He pointed at a sign nailed to a tree. "Sharp objects beneath soil." There was no sign. There were 4, Grandpa corrected, holding up 4 fingers. "You ran over 3 on your way in. The last one is right there. Hard to read unless you're actually looking." Karen jumped out of her Jeep, face red, sunglasses crooked, shaking with rage. "You're paying for this. I'll sue you." Grandpa shrugged. "Go ahead. Sheriff already knows you're trespassing. Called him before you came down the trail." Karen froze. "What?" Grandpa pointed behind her. Sure enough, a sheriff's SUV was slowly making its way down the service path. The sheriff arrives. Sheriff Dalton got out, saw Karen, saw the burst tires, saw the mess, and sighed the loudest sigh I've ever heard. "Ma'am," he said, "did you ignore the posted signs?" "They weren't clear." "There are 8 of them," he replied. "Big letters. Bright red." "I didn't notice." Karen yelled. "That's not a valid excuse," the sheriff said. "This is private conservation land. They even protect endangered deer through this area. Your vehicle could have harmed the habitat." Grandpa smirked. "It did harm it. And my trail too." Sheriff Dalton nodded. "Ma'am, you'll be receiving a trespassing citation and a fine." Karen's jaw dropped. "For what?" "For reckless driving on private preserved land." "And my tires," she shouted. "Trespasser expense," the sheriff said simply. "You pay, not them." Karen screamed into the trees again, just like a wild animal. The tow truck arrival. The tow truck showed up 20 minutes later. The driver took one look at the shredded tires and shook his head slowly. "Ouch. Whoever put these spikes in did a professional job." Grandpa lifted his chin proudly. Karen glared. "Just get my Jeep out." The driver loaded her Jeep onto the truck. "How much?" Karen snapped. The driver showed her the bill. $450 for off-road extraction. $150 for emergency service. $800 plus for 4 premium tires. $300 land damage fee. $500 conservation violation fine. Her total, $2,200. Not including the sheriff's separate trespass citation. She went white like a ghost. "You people are insane." Grandpa tipped his hat. "No ma'am, we just care about our land." The tow truck rolled away, taking Karen and her shredded Jeep with it. Her screaming echo slowly faded into the distance. Nature stays protected. Once everything returned to silence again, Grandpa and I walked the trail she had ruined. The tire tracks were deep, the soil scratched raw, and the wildlife had scattered. But Grandpa wasn't angry anymore. He was calm, peaceful, because the forest had been defended. "Son," he said, patting my shoulder, "in the woods, things stay balanced only if you make sure people respect the rules." I nodded, understanding more now than ever. "You think she'll come back?" I asked him. Grandpa smiled. "No, she learned her lesson the hard way. Our family's hunting land wasn't just land, it was history. Every tree, every trail, every creek had a story. We had hunted here, protected this forest, and preserved its balance for decades. And Grandpa, well, Grandpa treated every inch like sacred ground." So when Karen arrived in her loud, shiny Jeep, thinking the forest was her personal playground, she was about to learn a lesson she would never forget. The arrival. It was late morning, the sun streaming through the canopy in golden shafts. Grandpa and I were out checking the deer feeders, making sure the cameras were working, and noting new tracks in the dirt. The forest was calm, alive with birdsong and the rustling of small creatures. Then came the sound. A deep, aggressive engine growl. Branches snapping. Leaves crunching under tires. Grandpa froze mid-step, his eyes narrowing. "That's not our truck," he said quietly. And there she was, Karen, barreling through the undergrowth in her Jeep, mud flying in every direction. She stopped abruptly in the middle of our narrow hunting trail, rolled down her window, and called out, "Hey! Is this the quickest way to the waterfall?" Grandpa's jaw tightened. "Lady, this is private land," he said. "I'm already on it," she snapped. "So just tell me how to get out." She didn't see the signs she had destroyed along the way. She didn't see the deer scattering in panic. And she certainly didn't see Grandpa's mind already forming a plan. The calm before the storm. Grandpa didn't yell. He didn't threaten. He simply said, "Follow me. I'll show you the exit." Karen, thinking she had won, eagerly followed him. She assumed he was helping her. She assumed she could leave anytime she wanted. What she didn't know was that Grandpa had been maintaining that exit road for years. He knew every bump, every rock, every weak spot. And he knew exactly how to teach a city driver a lesson they would never forget. He disappeared briefly into the shed and returned with a heavy-duty toolbox and a bundle of steel tire spikes. His movements were deliberate, precise, like he had done this before. I watched, half in disbelief, half in awe. Grandpa placed the spikes carefully across the exit road, just beneath a layer of fallen leaves, creating the perfect trap for an overconfident driver. "Son," he said, "this isn't just about stopping her. It's about teaching her respect." I nodded. The moment of truth. Karen's Jeep approached the exit road. She sped up, oblivious, eager to leave. Grandpa stood to the side, calm, unflinching. She hit the spikes. Pop, pop, pop. The Jeep shuddered violently as 3 tires burst instantly. The vehicle fishtailed, skidding sideways across the dirt. Dust and leaves exploded into the air. Karen screamed like she'd never screamed before. She scrambled out of the Jeep, face red, hair messy, sunglasses askew. "What did you do?" she yelled. Grandpa crossed his arms. "You trespassed. You ignored the signs. And you destroyed my trail. This is your consequence. This is insane. You're paying for my tires." "No," Grandpa said calmly. "You're paying for your choices." The Jeep sat there, crippled and humiliated, just like its driver. The sheriff arrives. A siren approached in the distance. Sheriff Dalton, who knew the history of our land, had been notified in advance. "Ma'am," the sheriff said, surveying the damage, "did you enter private land without permission?" Karen stammered, I didn't see any signs." The sheriff shook his head. "There were multiple signs. You ignored them all. This is a violation of private property and conservation rules. You'll receive a citation." Karen's face went pale. "Citation? Fine. Tires. What is happening?" Grandpa only smiled faintly. "Next time, respect other people's land." The sheriff nodded. "We'll have a tow truck here shortly. You'll need it." Karen realized she was completely trapped. Not by anger or shouting, but by her own lack of respect for rules. The tow truck in aftermath. The tow truck arrived within 20 minutes. The driver assessed the Jeep and muttered, "Wow. Whoever put those spikes in knew exactly what they were doing." Karen demanded, "Just get my Jeep out of here." The driver loaded the Jeep onto the truck bed. The total cost, over $2,000, including tire replacement, trespass fees, off-road recovery, and land damage fees. Karen screamed again, but Grandpa remained calm, almost serene. "This is what happens when you ignore rules," he said softly. "Not because we want to hurt anyone, but because the land demands respect." I looked around. The forest was quiet again. Deer cautiously returned. Birds slowly resumed their song. The balance had been restored. The lesson learned. Grandpa turned to me as the tow truck drove away. "The land remembers," he said. "It remembers those who respect it, and it remembers those who don't. Karen, she won't be back. And if she does, she'll think twice." I nodded. It was more than a lesson for Karen, it was a lesson for all of us. Respect isn't demanded by shouting. Respect is earned, and the land will enforce it, one way or another. By sunset, the trail was quiet again. The tire tracks were deep, yes, but nature heals. And Grandpa, he had done what he always did, protected his land, his heritage, and taught a trespasser a lesson she would never forget. Some lessons aren't learned in a classroom. Some lessons are learned on a spiked exit road in the middle of a private forest. And for Karen, this was one lesson that would echo for a lifetime.